But the thing was that before writing this book and when I was growing up and coming out to my parents, we had no examples. And, I know it's a bit trite to say, but, there's always this thing about you cannot be what you cannot see. And for us, like for my parents, it was like, okay, well, we've got a gay son. He might as well be dead to us now. And so it's so important that we do see stories like this because what they teach us is that there is another way of being, that there is space for us to coexist in harmony. I mean, like, when people ask me about the book, what I say is that my parents are the heroes of the book, not me. They're the reason I wrote the book, because I wanted other parents who are struggling with their kids' identities to say, oh, well, if they can do it, then maybe we can too. I think the other reason why I was keen to put pen to paper was because there is a lot of narrative around what it means to be a Muslim family. And it was so important to me to tell a story where you're not feeding that narrative. The Guardian did a review of the book, and I was in floods of tears because, I mean, first of all, I think it's the guy who wrote it, or whoever wrote it, is a better writer than me, and I was just like, wow. But also because they really struck the heart of what I was trying to get at. What the Guardian said was that this isn't a book. This book departs from the kind of tired trope of immigrant child has to get away from family in order to find a space in the world. This was the opposite. And I don't think there are any spoilers, but it was really important for me to do that because I wanted to be able to tell a different story of what it means to be a Muslim in this country. Because all we see are like terrorists and strict parents who, and okay, all right, I do write about strict parents, but I also write about how awesome they are and the journey they go on. It's interesting that you bring the football into it because I've got a brother who is, as you read, he's 13 years younger than me. And so he's in his early 20s. And he has a very different relationship with the football. So he's just like, oh my God, I can't wait for England to win. It's going to be huge. And I also want England to win, fundamentally. But I have a much more complicated relationship. And the reason is, and my brother was like, but you were born here. Like, why would you not just want England to win? And it's like, well, he was 5 when the petrol bombing happened. So our house was petrol bombed in a racist attack. And I said to him, I was like, do you remember that? And he said, no, he said, I've got vague memories of the house being on fire, but not really. And I was like, okay, well, I was 17 when that happened. And what that told me as I entered adulthood was that the society that I lived in didn't think I had a place in it. And when that's your starting point, it's very difficult to unlearn that. It's very difficult to tell yourself in the face of literally your house being on fire that actually this is not true. This is not right. What's right is what I feel inside. And so I think it's interesting that you raise the football because I do think it does give rise to these issues of identity and belonging. Interestingly, I saw on Twitter that I think something like 8 of the players of the first 11 players wouldn't be playing if migration wasn't a thing because either a parent or one parent or grandparent is from abroad. So I think it's so much easier to support this team. I guess one point I would make is that there is a tendency within the queer community to center the experience of white middle class people. And I think that TV shows and publishers, I think it's great that we're talking about this. But I think if we're going to talk about it in a way that is genuine and doesn't lack sophistication, then we need to be talking about it from the perspective of the most marginalized. So we need to be thinking more about the trans experience, the experience of people of color within the queer community, and also the working class experience. Because the thing about the publishing industry and the TV industry is that they're overwhelmingly not for working class people because of the way that they're set up. And so if you don't have those sorts of people in the industry, how are you going to tell those stories? And so while I think it's fantastic that we have so much visibility, I do really think it's important that organizations, whether they're inviting speakers or whether they're thinking about giving book deals, I don't think it's enough to say, okay, well, this person is gay. I mean, I think that being gay does give you a diversity of experience, but I do think that what I would love to see is the next stage of evolution when it comes to the queer community, and that being an understanding that what it means to be queer is very different depending on whether you grew up in a poor part of Walthamstow or whether you went to somewhere like Eton or Harrow.